go back to a position of the filibuster that existed just when I came to the United States Senate 120 years ago.
And with that thought, what else happened 120 years ago, you might be asking? Well, let me show you a couple examples real quick. First, in the United States, it was the first auto competition ever. We also had oil discovered in Texas for the first time.
Ever.
And while President, back then it would be Senator Biden, was bathing, his hair still turned blonde in the sun.
But were the little kids playing with it?
They were.
And was he stiffened?
And already we've hit a new low. It's time for Freedom Roundup. Hello, it's Shaun Horner, Executive Director of the Heartland Fund Incorporated, in another exciting adventure of the Freedom Roundup. Joining me this evening are my motley crew of guests and cohorts. We'll start with my immediate right, the wonderful and beautiful Michelle Horner, President of the High Noon Republicans Women's Group. Next, Kress Cambers, Jeff Coleman, Campaign Manager and Treasurer for the Jackson County GOP.
Hey, Shaun.
Hey, somebody's awake. Dakota Worrell, President of the Young Republicans Group and Grassroots Coordinator.
Hey, how's it going?
And also our ray of sunshine for this evening. Last but not least, representing the 32nd District of Missouri, Jeff Coleman.
Hey, guys.
Hey!
Opening up with the brilliant quote by our President Biden. It's painful. That whole press conference is just a gym of gaffes. Here's another one.
This makes Jim Crow look like Jim Eagle. We should go back to a position of the filibuster that existed just when I came to the United States Senate 120 years ago.
That has to be one of my favorites.
What?
Which is, yeah. I was just mentioning this to Jeff's wife before we went live. I swear somebody was talking in his ear and said, "No, mention how it's back when you first started, like 120 years ago." And he hears 120 years and just bleh, spouts it right out.
How does he not know he said that?
Well, I
I
really don't know how to answer that because, I do believe he has Alzheimer's, but he has that cheat sheet that had every single reporter pictures, and it's in high, it has high, font, and it has numbers. So he knew who to ask and what questions they were going to ask and what to say. Yeah.
Yeah, but the pictures and circled the pictures. Yeah. It was awful.
It was awful. So, and on top he has this earpiece in, so it was a planned during the middle of the day press conference of this man that looked very tired. And I want to feel sorry for him because he obviously has Alzheimer's, but it's really hard knowing
some form of dementia,
and that he's being used by these people. But knowing what kind of person he is and the political scandals that he's done and all the problems he's done in the past, it's really hard to feel sorry for someone like that.
This is straight up elderly abuse.
I would say that, yes, but at the same time, this man is the most corrupt and vile person that's ever been our president.
Yeah, I'm with. I don't feel any sympathy. Trump would get up and do 2-hour marathon press conferences.
Exactly.
No help, with no notes,
with a hostile
press corps.
And like they said, that
just to battle
handlers.
the press. He would do it just to joust. 2 hours. He's like, I'm going to go do a press conference just to joust for fun.
It's like he got reinvigorated every time he would do that. Yeah. Trump would. He would it energized him to speak to the press and to spar with them. But they threw him softball pitches. It's like he has handlers. He has people that says what he does. He won't answer the press when he does normal speeches.
The great irony is he is everything that the media said Trump was. So the media would try to make Trump out to be like this he's going senile and he's losing it. Well,
He's crazy.
You know,
Well, the left, remember,
Biden-
the left always blames you for what's really going on behind
Right.
their back with them. And so this is what's going on, just like the kids in cages that
Yep.
they
But it's-
accused
Agreed.
But that's all
Trump
No.
to do, but
That's all Trump's fault.
yeah, exactly. And but there was no kids in cages when Trump was in office. He got rid of those kids in cages, and now there's tens of thousands of kids in cages.
Those detention centers looked a lot different once Trump got into office.
They got rid of
They were
them.
detention centers. I mean, honestly, they were. So many people started migrating over to the border, but Trump stopped it. He had a compact with what they're calling the Triangle Nations. It was Ecuador, Mexico, and help me out,
Guatemala.
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 Anyway,
But wait a
There's
second.
one
That's going to be Biden's new idea.
Well,
Well,
these
see,
people
this-
that are coming over
They're already
have,
rebranding it. You're
have,
right, Jeff.
You
They're already-
know,
they're already-
Biden let
right.
us in.
yeah, absolutely. They're wearing T-shirt, brand new
They're
white T-shirts.
T-shirts. Oh, and they're heavy set, so these people didn't walk 100,000 miles to get here. I mean, they aren't starving, and they all have these very expensive $1,000 or more
But see,
smartphones.
when they were saying that Trump had these kids in cages, he was ripping kids from mom's
Their
arms.
parents, yeah.
And what we're seeing is leaked photos from Project Veritas
Oh, those were
of
great.
actually kids sleeping on the floor in these cages, actual
Glass
fenced-in
cages, yeah.
cages.
and they're crammed together.
Mylar blankets.
With the Mylar blankets, the tinfoil blankets. I mean,
That have been there for
more than 72 hours,
more
which
than
is the federal law.
10 and 15 days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So who's breaking federal law?
Well.
And on top of that, you have these drug cartels that are bringing these
Where's our
kids
DHS
over.
secretary at?
$10,000 a head.
Ahead.
Where's
They're
the
bringing them
border
over,
protection
so
at?
you're saying, "Hey,
There
look,
isn't
we're
one.
bringing these kids, and we're bringing this fentanyl, which is the highest number of fentanyl case things that are
That
being
was
brought
so-
to the United States." Because remember, Trump fought fentanyl.
I'm glad you're
in
bringing this up because what they were seeing is
It was my idea, by the way.
I'm glad you're bringing this up because what the Border Patrol is seeing is they'll either push a surge of migrants through in a hole in the border, and on the other side where Border Patrol is not, because they're dealing with this migrant issue, they're bringing drugs over.
Right.
They're doing
They're
sex
doing it as a
trafficking
distraction.
over.
I'll-
They're doing it as a
distraction.
distraction. Absolutely.
I'll take it one step further and
Yeah.
and
What do we got?
One broadcaster, and I forget who it was, actually said this. They said that Biden is directly funding the cartels
Oh yes.
by allowing this to happen. These people are paying money because they know they'll get in the United States. And who are they paying?
$10,000 a head.
And who are they paying money to?
I just want to make sure you
It's
heard
not
that.
the Mexican government. It's
The
10,000.
Mexican,
ridiculous
It's American
money.
But,
government.
and to add on to that, there was some reporter did an interview with an illegal immigrant.
Yeah.
And the guy said, well, she asked him, was the new president or the change in presidents part of your reasoning for coming over the border? And of course, that was a leading question, and the answer that he was supposed to give was no. And and what he did was he said, "Oh yeah, definitely, yeah. If Trump would still be in office, I would never have come across the border. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah." And she's like, "Are you sure that's the answer you want to give?" That's
and
not
it
what
was
she
live.
wanted.
And it was live.
Yeah, yeah.
It was
he couldn't- He was
fantastic.
like, "Oh yeah, no, definitely, yeah."
But they're asking
That's where I got
multiple
these nifty
people.
t-shirts from, too.
They're asking multiple people that, and they're all saying that they would never have crossed if it wasn't that Biden was.
All right,
in
I want to
office.
take the illegal thing, and I want to circle it into the topic that we wanted to start off with this evening. I want to talk about Mitch McConnell and the nuclear option that we're facing yet again. We faced this under Harry Reid. Now Chucky and Bride of Chucky have decided that they want to take over. That's what I refer to Pelosi as. I've decided they want to take, a stern hand, which, I agree with what the commentator Steven Crowder always mentions. He says totalitarian. The left will always go totalitarian. It will eventually always go that direction.
They always want to do authoritarian, totalitarian government, and we are absolutely seeing this. But the left thinks that big daddy government, they want to get rid of the states' rights. They want to get rid of federalism as we know it now. and move toward a centralized federal government. I'm sorry.
Supra-federalism. Yeah.
Super federalism, yeah.
They're going to see.
I didn't mean to cut you off, Shaun. I was just,
No, you're fine. No, you're fine.
You're going to see. There's already states. 21 of them, I think, now have mentioned doing a convention of states.
Missouri being one of them.
I seen that. Missouri being one of them. Nebraska,
And
Kansas, Arkansas,
Texas is one of
Oklahoma.
them. Texas
Yeah.
is
And their biggest problem.
And I think Florida is going to join in.
And Michelle and I talked about this. The biggest problem with the Convention of States is that's the one piece that's only mentioned. There's no actual what that means.
So we have, what is it now, 31 Republican governors
Yeah.
and
Yeah, something like
Republican-controlled legislatures in the continental United States. So I'm kind of curious of how this whole Convention of States thing is going to work out and see how many more states join.
Well, it's not going to work in their favor.
You sit there and you have Michigan as a prime example of you have Republican-run House and legislature, but you have a Democrat governor, and they are changing like their voter stuff that's happening in there. And then Whitmer's saying, "No, I'm going to overdo this," and they have enough votes in the House and the state to override her veto, and so they're going to go ahead and do whatever it is to reform their vote.
Right.
Just like
Right.
and then
Regulations.
Georgia did.
Georgia.
Yeah.
And Georgia just did that, and so I'm surprised that is it Kemp in Georgia as the governor? I keep
Governor Kemp.
because there's Ratzenberger or whatever his name,
Brian Kemp.
Yeah, but Brian Kemp's actually signed
Weren't
it
you
into
working
bill.
in Georgia for a while, Dakota?
Unfortunately, yes.
But I'm just saying you have all these. You have a lot of people that might have a Democrat governor, but you have their House and Senate are Republican, just like Kansas. You might have a Democrat governor, but your House and your Senate is still Republican.
Well, and that leads back to an earlier conversation we had in one of the early podcasts where I talked about, or maybe it was just a conversation, Jeff, you and I had about making the governorship a mini electoral in the state, because then you wouldn't have.
Yeah, I remember us having that conversation. I don't know where it stemmed from, but yeah.
And this would explain that, because if you had to do an electoral system, even a smaller one at a state level, you wouldn't have this.
Well, when I was in
so different.
When I was in Virginia, there was a petition floating around to establish a state electoral college, and so this is an idea that's being floated around a lot of places. But like you're right, yeah, a state electoral college makes sense for the reason that you're saying.
For rural,
yeah.
So you get the rural representation other than just popular vote, and that's I'd like to see that change. Now I've gotten just completely off track. That change, and I'd love to see the repeal of the 14th.
Welcome to Freedom Roundup.
Yeah, I was just going to say, keeping off track. That's our motto on Freedom Roundup.
Keeping off track, but still somehow getting into the station.
Well, just real quick about
go ahead.
about the electoral college. The perfect example of that is Medicaid expansion here in Missouri. The Medicaid expansion, you have Jackson County, St. Louis County, Columbia, Boone County, and then Springfield were the only ones who voted for Medicaid expansion. The rest of the state was all no.
Yeah.
But those counties, those particular areas, which are Democrat areas, are the ones who control.
Yeah, the high density population.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Keynote. You may want to cut this because I'm doing this, but I'm putting the slicer here. Don't you, Jeff? Your own constituency. You run into that problem as well, too, right? With
Yes.
the way your county's split up.
Yeah. The way that my district is split up, you have Blue Springs, and then you have Grain Valley and Oak Grove, and they clearly have a split between the two. Okay. But Grain Valley and Oak Grove actually had the majority on the vote on Medicaid expansion, so they both voted no.
Right.
While Blue Springs voted yes for Medicaid expansion, but there were more people in Grain Valley, Oak Grove.
Blue Springs didn't vote for it by much. Though.
No, I didn't. I don't mean to say that, but they
But
did.
they still voted.
But
if we're
you're talking
going
about
just
in
by
your
popular.
district, in your
just in my district.
Yeah.
Yes.
And what's strange is you and I were talking about this earlier today, actually, that we're seeing Lee Summit turn purple. Blue Springs is well on the way of turning purple. They are getting a light shade of red right now.
Well, I know definitely that if you go into the school district and you listen to what these kids are coming out as.
Oh my gosh, Michelle.
I'm just saying, if you want to know why they're turning, you have these kids that are suburban, that their parents might be Republican or at least libertarian in their thoughts.
Right.
They are swinging their kids' ideals and their thoughts to definitely.
Oh, they're going to the left.
They're going to
really?
the left.
It's
real
always
fast.
the
So
white man's fault about everything.
And this is not a small town community where people move away. This is a small town community, a big town community that the kids stay in that area.
Right. People move to Blue Springs for a reason.
Yeah. but
It's
they
a
don't.
good community,
But they're
good
saying
school
how
district.
great the school district is good. But if the school district is turning these kids to a left perspective,
Very left
I
perspective.
don't think it's a great school district.
But here's
Right.
the thing. Here's what you have to understand is that a school district like Blue Springs, a school district like Grain Valley, who are growing school districts because they're a destination place, only have so many teachers to choose from. There's only a certain pool of people. And so as you start looking for teachers, the teacher pool gets smaller, and you're getting the younger teachers coming straight out of college.
And they're
So what are
exactly
they
the same
teaching them?
mindset. Yeah.
What are they teaching them in college? They're
Yeah.
teaching them to be activists and to get involved in their NEA, and it's a situation where that's what's being then taught to the kids in K through 12.
I mean, I think everybody agrees that the teachers union is ruining these schools.
And it's not the MR. Now Missouri has
Two.
They have the Missouri one, which is the
Missouri
MRCA.
State, well, the MRS.
STA.
Yeah, but that's the retired teachers, and then they have the MSTA.
and the MSTA, and then they have the NI,
The NEA.
NEA.
I think the problem you're touching on is broader than just the teachers, though. I mean, that's a hyper local issue, but the broader issue is the culture that's being changed by. I mean, you're right. All these teachers go to university, and these professors have tenure. They're there forever. They were flower children in the 60s, and they've been indoctrinating generations of.
Which is really funny when you talk about the flower generation, because remember, those were the generation that said, no government, we want to do what we want, blah, 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 blah,
Well,
blah.
it's a different kind of.
But no, it's the same. But now they want to put their thumb down on this generation and not have the freedom that they were allowed.
See, and that's the difference between then liberals and the classic liberals now, and the libertarians now. If you trace it back, we're getting way off into the weeds right now, Shaun.
We
I'm
really
sorry.
are.
I'm sorry, but the classical liberal, which was what you were talking about, Michelle, it fits up with the libertarians of today.
Right. That's right.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Well, they're more
No,
of the
no.
blue dogs, the Democrats of old.
Well, I would argue that even like modern like Beltway libertarians are more left wing than they should be. I
No,
mean,
when you boil them down, they always are.
There was
their sole issues are like pot and I should be like social issues.
Well, and
child pornography.
Yeah, and it's
That they're for.
Yeah.
yeah, and
Well,
someone-
normalization of what we would have called abnormal behavior.
Yeah.
I'll just blanket.
Someone, I can't remember what commentator told me this, and I know that me and you talked about it at home, Shaun, is that the problem is when we have libertarianism and we have the freedom to do and say and think that we want, if we have true libertarianism, that is what these people have pushed for, but now we have come and became this
Full circle.
We can
Yeah.
full circle with that. We've done this. Now we have all these problems, and now we have these
Now we gotta
radical
fix it.
left.
Now we gotta fix it. Yeah.
These radical lefts, and
And-
we have to fix it. So you can
Yeah.
either, if you want true libertarianism, you end up just circling back and having all the problems we now have.
I should say there's a difference between the libertarianism of like a Ludwig von Mises in the early 20th century and the libertarianism of today with the Beltway libertarians, and they call them lolbertarians, like LOL, like
Yeah.
like they're neckbeard, live in a mom's basement, pot smoking libertarians that only care about legalizing weed and being able to do whatever you want, having
Let
no
me do my
rules.
thing.
You know, it's a different kind of libertarianism today than like the intellectual classical liberalism of Ludwig
Well, I
von
always
Mises.
thought I always thought of the Pauls as the libertarian those two, Rand and his dad, were originally they were libertarians.
Rand Paul.
Yeah, Rand Paul.
But that's because, and the reason they seem different is because they're in that classical tradition,
Right,
following Mises,
Right.
and Hayek. So they're more on the intellectual side rather than the Libertarian Party of today, the modern
Right.
Libertarian Party, who is a joke.
Get high and do peace.
That's not-
love.
Yeah, they're anti-war and
That is
pro-pot, and that's
that is
about
the
it.
worst.
No, it's not. Have you ever seen someone get high? It's like, dude,
That's
party.
So, Sean, what was the original question, real quick?
Originally, topic 1 was going to be McConnell and the filibuster,
Well, that just went out the
and
window.
and somehow we got into pot.
So let me talk to you about the filibuster.
Yeah,
real
yeah,
quick,
yeah.
Because,
No, you go ahead.
You know,
Get us
the
back on track.
Democrats are really pushing that right now.
Probably
right?
at every level, right?
And traditionally, when anything happens, even down at the state capitol, where it could affect you in a negative way in the future, if you change something now,
Right.
you're always cautious about that.
Sure.
But the Democrats right now are not thinking about the future, because if they get this changed, if they're able to accomplish what they're trying to accomplish with the filibuster, all bets are off.
Right.
They don't have to worry about the future, because they
Simple
will
majority.
Yep, they will control everything that happens in Congress
And
from
that's
now
not
on.
what the Senate rules were set up for. The simple majority. That's not what the Constitution was set up for.
Well,
simple
I'll go-
majority.
But they
I'll go
obviously
back to
don't
the
care- they
I'll go
obviously
back
don't
to
care
the
about that,
14th
though.
Amendment
Oh,
every
obviously
time.
not.
They want to get rid of the Constitution.
I'll go back to the 14th Amendment every time. Any one of these numbskulls more than likely would already be out.
Right.
Because the states that, like you said, 31 are controlled by majority Republicans, their senators would not be Democrats.
So
And we wouldn't have this.
They'd
Mitt
be appointed by the
Romney.
legislature.
what Sean's talking about, yeah, senators back in the day were appointed by the state legislatures,
Which is the way I think it should be. Because that's
which
the way
I
it was
think
set
we
up.
should go back to that instead of having the majority vote
right.
go
It's-
to pick your senator.
well, because you'll never get those folks out.
Right.
You know, because they
I
can.
mean, we're seeing people like Mitch McConnell in there, Chuck Schumer, 30+ years, Chuck Grassley, even longer.
It's
There
Chuck
needs to be
Grassley
I agree with Sean that there should not be a time limit on senators, but I don't believe you should be in for eternity either. I mean, that's why you supposedly have elections to get these people out, but I think that it shouldn't be forever. I think
Maybe there should be an age limit.
there should be an age
Instead
limit
of-
and a time
instead of
limit.
term
There,
limit.
there
That
should
would be ageist.
I mean,
Well-
it should be like maybe 4 terms the max.
The
I mean,
system-
because like you said,
So
Jeff,
do
you
term
term-
limit.
term limit.
Term limit. Yeah,
the
I'm
a
not
form of
mad
term-
about
I
that.
mean, I understand that when you first get there, you don't know what you're doing, and it takes you a couple of years to get your feet wet and to understand.
Sean, I know this is way off
So-
subject, but I'm liking what you're saying, Michelle, because if we do have the term limits, it would put these guys in perspective of, okay, I have this long to get something done.
Mm-hmm.
What can I do for hopefully the American people and not their self-interest? But what can I do to better what we got?
Originally, it's lawyers were not intended to become state reps and senators. It
Oh,
was
no.
intended for
The
the
common
American,
people.
the common person to
Yeah.
be a state rep and to
Absolutely.
be just like Jeff is a common
then to go
person.
home-
And to go home and do their own stuff. I'm
she
just
meant
saying.
that in a nice way.
Yeah, I meant that in a nice way. I mean, you're just a common. You're not a lawyer.
Thank you to that.
You're not a lawyer. You're just a normal everyday person. To me, you're just my friend. But I'm just saying you're just
But also,
like one of
we run into
us.
something like what Jeff. I think this is what you're going.
I'm not saying
she's
it right.
trying. She's trying to
I'm-
dig that hole so
I'm
bad.
digging it deeper and
So
deeper.
what Jeff? I think what Jeff is wanting to say here. I'll let him talk. He's his own person. Holy crap!
Hey, you're
I
you're
keep trying to
digging
get in.
too.
You know what? I'm his campaign manager.
Yes,
so
Jeff?
it's one of those things that it's.
Yes,
I
Jeff.
know we're digging our hole.
Yes,
Keep
Jeff?
shout me off, please.
I keep
That's
trying
what
to
the
get
big,
in.
That's what the new soundboard
That's
is
what the
going to
new
do.
big
Yeah,
board's
the new
for.
big board's going to do is I can just mute you.
And
yeah.
you still try to get in. You keep talking.
To Michelle's
So,
point
Jeff?
is that term limits are fine. I don't have an issue with term limits, but you can't put them so short that you really get nothing done, and you lose institutional
perpetual campaigning.
Yep, and you lose institutional knowledge with that.
Right.
So I know that we're looking at term limits right now down at the Capitol to adjust them to where we have a total of 16 years, which is what it is now. It's 8 years in the House and 8 years in the Senate, but let's combine those two together and allow us to run at whatever level or whatever combination of the two that we want to.
Oh, just 16 years total. So you could be 16 years in the House. If you wanted. Oh, okay.
Right.
Which is better than, I mean, at least you have experience by that time.
Well, and there's no push to then, well, I have to do Senate or I have to get out.
Well, and the other thing is you're still getting elected. Who knows if you're going to get elected for all 16
years.
Basically, who runs the show down there, especially with the new guys? I know we touched on it before on another podcast, but who actually runs the show down there, especially with the new guys?
Well, the lobbyist runs the show because
which is what they're trying to prevent.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so when you lose people, we have a guy by the name of David Wood, who was awesome, and in his knowledge and his appearance on the floor was just really, really awesome, and he turned out. So we lose that we lose that knowledge and that leadership that he provided for the whole House, because he was turned out.
I would be the one person on this to probably oppose the idea of term limits.
No, I'm actually not for term limits.
Okay, awesome.
Sean's not either.
I'm still old school. Let's do this.
Well, the problem
is that you have a Chuck Schumer, you have a Nancy Pelosi.
Well, and why is that? It's because when you have an incumbent that has funding, you're never going to get them out.
Or you have an incumbent that does voter fraud, you're never going to get them out.
Well, and the issue, like the idea of term limits is a Band-Aid that doesn't address the real issue. Why is it so desirable to get elected to United States Senate? Because you have a lot of power.
Well, you have money that people give you under the table.
But money
because
for what, though?
How in the world did you come up with $200,000 is what your bank account was when you go into become a U.S. senator or even a United States president, and you come out with billions of dollars and you're naming 3 houses as Barack Obama. Mm-hmm. So I mean,
that
is a secret that they don't tell the American people. And that the American people need to open their eyes and see that these people get paid under the table, and they wanted Trump to show his bank statements. Why don't we look at these people that are in office and have them do their tax returns, and let's see where their money's coming from.
I agree with that, but the thing is what they're getting paid to do. Like the reason they get so rich is because the system is set up. Like the federal government assumes to have power over the economy, so they can regulate every aspect of the economy, every industry.
Right.
Well, that creates a grift machine.
Yeah.
So you have to hire a lobbyist. If you are a company that gets reasonably large, you have to hire lobbyists to survive.
Right.
It's not a matter of choice at that point.
No,
because if you don't, your opponent, your competitors will, and they will write regulations that are detrimental to you and advantageous to them.
Yeah.
So it's called rent seeking. So the reason that senators and representatives are so powerful is because they assume control over the economy that gives people in the Iron Triangle rent seeking power. So
all right. Well, that was about the longest first segment we've ever had, I think, and it barely touched on what I wanted to.
Thanks for being here tonight.
Yeah, that's it. So we're going to take a short break. When we return, we're going to talk a little bit. Jeff's going to go over some regional stuff that cleared the Rules Committee, I believe. We're going to talk about that a little bit. Circle back. You're welcome.
Circle back.
We'll circle back.
Circle back
and talk about our wonderful president and his recent press conference. So we'll be right back in a minute. This evening's conversation, and that's in air quotes, funding provided by the Red Herring in Buckner, Missouri. You can find them on Facebook. They provide custom printing and consignment. The Red Herring, Find them on Facebook. Open Monday through Saturday, 318 South Hudson in Buckner, Missouri. This portion of the podcast is sponsored by the Heartland Fund Incorporated, sponsoring issues and candidates that care. Appreciate the podcast? Well, it's expensive. Could we bother you for, say, a cup of coffee a month? For $5 a month, you can contribute to our grassroots effort. Donate online, day or night, at www.fundingtheheartland.com. Hello, sir or madam. We would love to hear from you. No, really, honestly. If you have any feedback, comments, or hate mail, or hate female, visit www.fundingtheheartland.com, or you can email us directly at media@fundingtheheartland.com. Welcome back. Shaun Horner, Executive Director of the Heartland Fund Incorporated. Another edition of Freedom Roundup. Right now, we're going to talk about some regional stuff, some regional politics and some legislation that has moved that we were told about before the broadcast. So Jeff's going to fill in a little bit on that, about what's happening in Jeff City.
Holy cow, I finally get to talk. Wow.
You just need to interrupt everybody more, Jeff.
So, yeah, I'm super excited about this because we talked a little bit about this last podcast.
Yep.
About the property tax bill that I have going, House Bill 248. It made it through the committee,
The
Ways
Rules
and
Committee?
Means.
Oh, the Ways and Means.
Ways and Means, yay.
Yeah,
Yeah, and it went through unopposed. The next hurdle was getting through Rules Committee.
and we talked about that.
And holy cow, we made it through 12-1.
Wow.
The only one that voted against it was a new freshman Democrat who doesn't have a clue what she's doing.
Was just going to oppose just to oppose?
Right, exactly.
Oh, that's too bad.
So, but everything's going in the right direction. We're just now waiting for the Speaker of the House to put it on the calendar. Once he gets it on the calendar, it is a shoe-in to get onto the floor. We'll have that debate,
Sweet.
And then we'll be getting it over to the Senate.
Now, my next question was going to be, was it this bill? I can't remember if it was this bill or another bill that you said had a similar one in the Senate that would make the...
This one does not.
Okay.
This
one,
one,
okay.
believe it or not, there is no special interest behind this. It is simply my my language and my ideas,
Okay.
and it's getting super support from both sides. Actually,
Good. All right, so that was the property tax one. Was there any others that you had news on as well?
Well, there was a big bill that we passed this last week in the House, which was school choice.
Okay.
And what it is.
Oh, that's the one. And incidentally, I hate to interrupt you, Jeff. Incidentally, this is the one
That's
that
okay.
got us.
Everybody else has tonight.
Incidentally, this one got us on 7:10 a.m. just this last week. They took a clip directly from our podcast and talked about the topic. So
More so, I think it's because Jeff called out the host of the show, but still, our podcast was on regional radio.
yes, so we'd like to thank Pete for...
Mundo. Pete
Yeah.
Mundo, thank you very much. And you know I love you, man.
Yeah, no.
Just wanted to make sure you knew that.
I mean, just to be clear, we are friends of the show. We are friends with Pete Mundo. There is no malice behind that at all.
None at all, because we all agree here with what he was saying.
Yeah.
So there's certainly no malice, and we absolutely agree with him. But the thing that I want to let you know is that that's not the bill I was talking about. We passed another bill.
Oh, okay.
That is for school choice, but it is open enrollment.
Oh,
And
okay.
open enrollment simply says that you can move to any school that you want to go to in the state, any public school.
Nice.
And as long as that public school has the openings or the slots for you to come to. Schools have the ability to opt out of this, so it's
Okay.
not something that the schools...
So they won't be flooded. So you won't have like a particular school district just inundated with kids.
That's right.
Okay.
Yep. And so the schools have control. I know there's a lot of concern about recruiting for activities and such. That is not going to be the case any more so than what it is currently under the current laws, because MSHA, who controls all the sports and activities, still has the same control that they have always. So nothing has changed there. The schools, as I mentioned, they will have the control of who comes as far as the numbers are concerned, and it's not just an open.
So I want to ask you kind of the same thing that I mentioned to Mundo. I talked about our son who we took out of public school, we put into a private online school. If I was displeased with my current school district, would this bill allow me to go to a different district, to do, something like that?
Yes.
In that scenario.
That's
Awesome.
exactly right.
Regardless of whether I'm in King City or
It does
wherever.
That's right. The only caveat is you have to get them there.
Right.
So,
but if they right now, most schools offer, and this is the part that I kind of wanted to get into to Pete when I called into his radio program after I was tickled pink about the copying the podcast. The part that I wanted to get into with him, which was, since everyone offers virtual school, if we open this up, not only does it allow parents to choose, wherever, but these schools could then think of it more as a profit center too, right? If they offered virtual, virtual schooling to, somebody from Cape Girardeau,
it's interesting though. I'm on the school board, and it's really hard for me to say this because I love Grain Valley schools. I love Blue Springs schools, Oak Grove schools, all of which are in my district.
Right.
And I know people are pushing back on me because of my votes. But the fact is that we truly have nothing to worry about with any of this school reform because we are destination centers.
Yeah, you're one of the places kids are going to go to. Yeah.
And isn't it what we want? Isn't that what we want? We want schools to think of this as being, let's do what we can to be more competitive, just like business would be, because that's what makes us better. That's what makes it better for the kids. And so as we try to come up with out-of-the-box solutions to try to help these kids, because that's really what it's about. It's not about the schools. It's not about the monies. It's about what are we doing for the kids that are not getting the opportunities that some of the other kids are getting.
Right.
So why are we so worried about what happens if we come up with these ideas and we vote for these ideas?
No, I think your biggest hurdle, and we saw this before, is always, they always worry about the last castle, which is their money, right? That's what it always comes down to.
I do have something to say. It's that you played that critical race theory thing about how the white kid's money goes to his school and he gets a lot, and the black kids money go to his school and they only live a couple blocks away, which is the same school district. But this would make those kids that have supposedly the less money going to the school take that less money and go to a better school district. So it actually gets rid of the critical race theory concept of these kids don't get the same education, because this allows those kids that don't have this, I'm using this against them, to use that money to go to a better school.
Yeah, take their money and run.
Run. It allows those kids that supposedly have less of a chance to take their money and go to a better school.
Well, I think with this bill, that one of them at least that they're trying to push through the House, the schools still get funded for an additional 2 years, something like that.
That was the original bill.
That's the original one.
The original bill, which is the ESAs, which a lot of people call vouchers. They're not vouchers. It's
just
educational savings accounts. Private dollars allows a student in an underperforming school either use those funds. They get a scholarship. They can either use those funds for purchasing books, for transportation, to go to another public school if they wanted to, because under the current laws, you still have to pay monies to go to that other public school.
Right.
a tuition is what I was looking for.
Yeah.
And so they could go to another public school or they could go to a private school. It is not, and I want to make sure that everybody understands this, it is not for people who are already in private schools.
Right.
They do not get an opportunity for these scholarships. So, and that was the argument for Pete last time. Pete was really frustrated and discouraged about the fact that it wasn't open to the whole state.
Right.
It was only open to those cities that had 30,000 people or more.
Yeah.
Going back to Kress's point, the schools are held harmless for those students as the bill stands right now for 5 years, which means they continue to get the funding, the state funding, for that child. If they leave the school district and go to a private school, they continue to get that funding for the next 5 years as the bill stands. It still has to go through the Senate, so all bets are off when it comes to that.
So here's my weird hypothetical, Jeff. So student in the Kansas City, Missouri school district decides that it's underperforming. They want to move their kid under either bill. That student qualifies because it's over 30,000. So they decide to go to independence.
Let me make a real quick distinction.
Okay.
Only the first bill has a 30,000 distinction.
Right.
I know that you know that, but I want to make sure that our audience knows that.
So student goes to independence. Kansas City still gets the funding for 5 years.
Yes.
Right.
Under the first bill.
Under the first bill. Does
No. We're confusing the two.
That's what I want to make sure I understand.
We're confusing
who's
the two.
who.
Because, no, that's not true. Because, again, they could go to independence.
Right.
That's right.
Right.
But they'd have to use those funds to pay the tuition to independence. Right.
Okay. So my question was, so that student has now moved over. So Kansas City's got that lock of funding for 5 years, as
Correct.
if that student was still there. So my question is, and this is where it becomes, kind of tricky. After that first year, that student decides, or the parents decide, or they all decide that independence is not performing well for this child either, and they decide to move a third time. How does that fit into that bill?
I don't think they can. I think they...
Because I was wondering if they did that skip more than once within a 5-year period, then you've got 3 school districts dipping into the same well.
No, they would, if they didn't want... if they weren't satisfied with independence, in your example, they would have to move back to Kansas City.
Okay. That's because the last thing I wanted was for some weird thing going on where you've got a student popping around. So now you've got all these school districts falsely inflating their funding.
Right.
Because I can go to student B, and I don't remember the last time I looked at independence, and it's been several years. It was nearly $19,000 per child.
It might be high.
Yeah.
I think that Kansas City is the highest in
Maybe
our
it
region.
Maybe it was Kansas City then. I don't remember
Kansas
who it
City
was.
is actually at
Independence.
15,000.
15? Okay.
Independence is going to be between 10 and 15. I
Okay.
don't know exactly. What
I know
that
they were
is.
close to I know they were close to Kansas
Kansas
City.
City.
Yeah.
They were close.
I
mean,
they popped around to different school districts, and suddenly, you've inflated it $45,000, and of tax revenue that
but
wasn't
what I
there.
think the states are more worried is because they have the butt and seats money that they get, so they actually have to count how many butts are in seats. That's why it's so important that they don't have kids miss school. So, but that's federal money, right?
Yeah, that's federal.
So that's what they're fighting, that they lose the federal money because with the butt and seats.
And understand that education takes up a third of Missouri's budget. So education and then Medicare. Those two are 2/3 of the budget. And actually, Medicare, with some of the changes that have happened here recently, now jumps up to almost 40% of the budget.
Wow.
So, well, I guess I'm trying to guess where you're going with this, and I hope I'm right. Does this mean with these two bills kind of moving us towards school choice, will this enable us to free up some resources now that Medicaid expansion is going to take up more of the budget?
I don't think that it's going to free up, to be honest with you, unfortunately.
Honestly, that's a great question.
Yeah, but I don't think it's going to free any monies up because what's going to happen, we're still paying those dollars right now. regardless of these two bills, we're still paying the same dollars. So
Well, okay. Well, but at least the parents and students will get to have a choice and have some say.
they have some options,
Yeah.
which is what I think we need to have, because I think it goes back to the parents are paying the monies for the schools. It's tax dollars going to the schools, so they should have the choice.
So at the end of the day, it's not like that there's any new money being created here. It's the money. It's their money,
That's right.
and they're just moving it to where they choose to move it toward,
That's right.
rather than someone else dictating for them.
So, Jeff, is there any other regional pieces of legislation that have come to or that are coming up that you want to talk about real quick?
Well, the big one that everybody's talking about right now is going to be the budget, because the Medicaid expansion was passed,
Right.
and it looks as though the budget committee is not going to fund that portion.
Ooh.
Because from a constitution standpoint, it's not required to be, and I don't know if it's even allowed to be. So there's a big question there. So that will be coming up for debate, and I'm sure we're going to get lots and lots of input from both sides.
Okay.
So it is a very emotional bill, and well, what's in a bill? It was what do you call it?
State referendum, yeah.
Initiative petition. But
Are we going to change that too? Sorry, I don't mean to get us
yes,
sidetracked.
we're working on that
Okay.
right now. That's a big bill, and that's something that we should have talked about. But there's a big voting bill that's coming that I think we just passed.
Where
this
we're going to
week.
actually make it so that legislation has to go through the legislative branch for
Right.
a change. That would be nice, because
Yeah.
I'm getting tired of stuff with Clay Chastain's name slapped on it.
Sorry,
Seriously.
guys. I agree with you, but Ted Cruz just tweeted what is happening at the border. Thousands of kids in the midst of a pandemic crammed in at 1,500% capacity. So if you go to Ted Cruz's Twitter page,
I don't have Twitter anymore.
this is just one of the quote pods at Donna. There are 7 more equally full. These kids are packed shoulder to shoulder to shoulder with the blankets on, the
Mylar blankets.
Mylar blankets.
It's that
I
dang
mean, Ted
Trump.
Cruz is having.
It's Trump's fault.
Trump.
Orange
This
man.
is incredible.
Orange man bad.
He's a bad dude.
So anyway,
We'll
we'll
show
wrap
up
up.
on his Telegram.
We're gonna wrap up. Jeff, was there anything? The Medicaid one is going to be huge.
Medicaid is
It's gonna be
huge.
huge.
People are going to be talking a lot about that here soon.
And I have a question for you. With regard to especially the more recent bill coming up, your property tax bill, is there a way that people can follow that and maybe
good.
maybe call their representative when it goes to the floor? Or
Absolutely. In fact, I encourage them to talk to their representative to let them know how important this is to get this passed. There's some possibilities of some amendments coming to it that are really going to make this bill even better. And it's going to be really exciting for people when they see that the values that they end up with when this bill passes, I'm just going to say they're going to be super happy with it.
And is there a date that we need to follow, that we need to tune into?
I think the most important thing right now is to get on email or get on the phone and get a hold of the Speaker of the House, because he's the one in control right now of getting it on the calendar. And until it gets on the calendar, we can't hear it on
Can't
the
do
floor.
anything with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the big thing here is to get everybody that you can and pile on the Speaker of the House. Sorry, Speaker. But he needs to know how important this is to the state of Missouri.
No, it is. Yeah.
And then once that
important.
happens, then we need to get to the Senate, because once we get it passed on the House floor, which I feel really good about, we will then have to go over to the Senate, and we're going to have to go through the process again of committee, and we're going to need to get as many people down at the Senate to testify for the Senate
So-
how important this is to
Jeff, offhand, do you know Rob Vescovo's number, the Speaker of the House?
you. Yeah, his number, if you want his number, is 573-751-3607. That's 573-751-3607. Or you can email him
Yeah.
at rob.vescovo. That's spelled V as in Victor, E, S as in Sam, C, O, V as in Victor, O, at house.mo.gov. So once again, that's rob.vescovo at house.mo.gov.
Nice.
And
Nice.
the reason I ask is to give our listeners an action item
There you go.
with regard to your bills coming up, because that's something tangible that they can do right now. If they like what they're hearing, they can take action right now and kind of grease the wheels a little bit.
The sooner, the better, the more, the better.
All right. Anything else, Jeff, on that front? Or is
No,
that
I
pretty
think-
much everything that's
I
coming
think that's-
through so far that
Yeah,
you
I
want to
think
talk
that does
about?
it for now.
Okay. And then, like always, I think we've got a commercial break where I mentioned that you can also communicate with the Heartland Fund, too. So we'll display that.
Hello, sir or madam. We would love to hear from you. No, really, honestly. If you have any feedback, comments, or hate mail, or hate female, visit www.fundingtheheartland.com, or you can email us directly at media@fundingtheheartland.com.
Welcome back. I want to do that plug where you can get in contact with us as well, since we're talking about contact information. All right, so third topic, and we'll put a fork in it after this. I wanted to get everyone's hot take on that disaster, which was and I'll put this in air quotes, press conference. It was awful. Who would like to speak about the Biden press conference first? Jeff has actually.
What was the question again? I can't remember.
I knew he was going there. Oh, it was very bad.
That's how it went.
Yeah,
just
no,
like that.
It was awful.
I tried to listen to his press conference. I couldn't. I had to stop. I mean, it was so bad, and it was so blatantly set up.
I make a point to not watch.
I do too.
Any of it anymore. I
I can't because one, he lies. Like, there's so many lies. They pointed out that he couldn't tell the truth on anything. He had the things listing all of the reporters' names, photos, and he's numbered on who he was supposed to ask. So he actually knew.
It was
Everything was set up and planned. It was at
Scripted,
noon.
yeah.
It was definitely scripted. It was planned when nobody was going to watch it at noon-ish, when people were at lunch or working. I mean, he doesn't do anything in the evenings. Nothing is non-scripted like Trump used to do, like we've talked earlier.
he'd get mutilated, even
I mean-
with a friendly press.
Yeah,
I mean, there's only so
absolutely.
much they can cover.
And I
or
mean,
not-
when that one lady asked him about the border crisis, he goes, "Come on, man." I mean, which that's all he ever says when he's like, "Come on, man," and you're just like going, "Seriously?"
I mean,
when he gets belligerent, he starts doing the "Come on, man."
it's satanic how dishonest these people
no, it
are.
really is.
Done. If it holds near and dear to you that you like to be able to. Anyway, we're ready to get a lot done.
I mean, really, it's sad. I mean, it's not sad. I'm sorry. It's pitiful.
Yeah, that's a better word.
It's pitiful.
It is pathetic. It absolutely is pathetic. And it's cringe is what it is.
And the thing is that should really enrage these American people is that they put this man to be the next president that is supposedly the president of the United States. I still say Trump is because he never conceded the election.
That's my president.
That's my president. Is that this man, his wife still have him in, but he's as a dummy president. He's just sitting there as a puppet. Kamala
I mean,
actually in control.
If you want to go back,
I mean, yeah,
if you want to go
that
back,
is really
if you want to go
good.
back, if you want to go back and you want to watch the press conference, I don't know how familiar you are, but there's a comedian that works with the Blaze TV, and his name is Steven Crowder, and he does a watch party. That's the only way to get through it.
Oh yeah,
Because-
this is great.
Because that's the only way I could do it. It hurts. I mean, I can't see anybody. I mean, anybody that actually wanted Biden to win, I have a hard time believing that they're not concerned.
So
Would that
Jeff,
be
you
a
have
good
something
word?
to say? That's good because I'm going to interrupt you anyway, like we've been doing all night.
Oh my God.
So I actually got to listen to it while I was at work because I have nothing better to do than to work and listen to politics stuff, right? So, and apparently Joe Biden was on the list. So I was listening to this thing and I'm going, he's keeping his talking points together pretty well. He's doing very good calling on the names of these people until I started watching the video.
Yeah,
I had
that's-
time to watch video.
That's
and
where it changed. That's where it changed
clearly he was reading off in notes. He was
flipping through
had
a
a
notebook.
binder.
Yeah. It was
much like the press secretary did.
You listen to it, and yeah,
She's going to
there's some-
circle back to that later, though.
There's some gaffes, there's some screw ups, but it's Joe Biden, right? So that bar has been lowered significantly because I mean we knew he was going to be, a gaff machine like crazy, but this guy was sad.
Did you see his eyes?
No, really.
His eyes were like
like
He was
deer in the
drugged.
headlights,
Like he was
deer in the
drugged.
headlights.
they were just, his eyes were just weird. They were open really wide most of the time, and they were just
Like he
looking
was
out in
on
space.
something,
Yeah.
yeah.
Like barbiturates or something. Just you need to stay awake. And that's why I just said it at the beginning of the podcast. I was jokingly saying that somebody said 120 years in his earpiece, not meaning literally 120 years, and that's right what came out of his mouth.
Well, you know that as soon as that was done, he was done for the day.
Yep.
There was they took him off, and
Yep.
Well, he likes to play video games with his grandchildren.
well, I think he was napping at that time.
Yeah, but I'm just saying that's what
no way.
the press,
There's no way.
and that he's such a moral person, and he's such a great moral person. That
So-
one of the press people said to him, "I'm just."
Fox
like,
News
it was-
contributor Joe Contra had this to say about the press conference, which I agree with 110%.
About the lack of questions he was taking and the lack of transparency on behalf of this administration.
And after that 1 hour and so press conference that we just watched, Sandra, John, we still don't really have any answers in terms of specifics to the pressing problems within this country. And look, I hate to differ a bit from some folks that have been speaking already, but this was a disgrace for most of the press corps. And for the president, he said some outrageous things that demanded to be pressed on. And of course, no one in the room can decide to do it. When the president of the United States says, for instance, when he has the support of a majority of Republican voters, I just checked Gallup, he's at 10% support among GOP voters. So what is he talking about? And obviously the reporters were chosen for him in terms of the optics. He's reading off a predetermined list of reporters to call on, one that didn't include Peter Doocy. So that's a question for the White House handlers of Mr. Biden. Why are you so afraid of a rookie White House press correspondent? But also, again, about that document that was in front of him that he continually had to refer to. Ari Fleischer wrote, and it was a good question, I wish someone would have asked him about that. Sir, what is that notebook that you appear to be flipping through, and why are you referencing and reading from it? Aren't you confident enough in your own answers to provide an argument? But Yamiche Alcindor, who got the second question, she's from PBS, your tax dollars at work. This was patently embarrassing to the profession. She made the argument that the surge at the border was only happening because Mr. Biden is, quote, a moral and decent
nice guy.
man.
Yeah,
she
the
didn't
nice
bother
guy.
to even quote back Biden in terms of what he said as a candidate when he literally said to migrants to surge the border, unquote. Mexico's president agrees with that the rhetoric of Mr. Biden led to the surge, as do migrants themselves when you interview them. She then pressed Biden to back the filibuster in the name of civil rights. In other words, it wasn't even a question. She was advocating for it while accusing Republicans of suppressing voting rights. This wasn't only
rid of the
bias in broad
filibuster,
daylight,
you're
it was
racist.
activism. But kudos to Kristen Welker, who was the only reporter there to actually press Mr. Biden on media access to migrant facilities. He said he'll only allow access when his plan is implemented. So then she followed correctly by saying, oh, when's that going to happen, by the way? And he said he didn't know. So, look, I mean, Peter Doocy, I'm sure he would have asked some good questions, but otherwise, this was an embarrassment to the press corps, guys.
Yeah, it was so bad. The only way it would have been worse is if, as the press corps came in, they handed them the questions. That was the only.
They were already done.
Oh, I know. Well, they already vetted him. That I'm sure. But I mean, literally handed them the questions to say at that time.
They probably already did. They probably emailed them.
Well, I'm sure they knew about it. I mean, there's no way they
already knew what the answers were going to be, the questions were going to be. But he already had it pre-planned.
There's such a glaring difference between the honesty, the honesty of the Trump White House, because what else could it be? He was constantly under attack by the media. They hated him to the point where they would make up lies about him just because, or they would nitpick or whatever, make stuff up to be mad about him. And it flipped so drastically to now they're making up stuff to make Biden look good. And they're literally scripting press conferences.
They're propping him up.
Doing. I mean, this should.
Literally,
at this
more ways
point,
than one.
I want every Biden voter right now to look inside their own soul.
No, really.
And seriously, like, ask yourself, like, do you believe that you are an honest person? Do you believe that you're a good person? And if so, why would you be okay with this if you're a good person?
Dakota, you know as well as I do, they're going to lie about it. Because it's their candidate. It was hashtag vote blue no matter who.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. You're not a good person. You think you're a good person, but you're not. Like, I'm trying not to have an aneurysm listening to this, but it's so abjectly stupid and dishonest. How can you sit there and say that you're the better person here, right? Republicans are the evil people, right? The conservatives are the backward,
want to try to say, babies' lives and let,
are the bad people.
And actually have voter ID, though,
that's
the Democrats think you need to have vaccine IDs.
Right. I mean,
all these other IDs, but not voter ones.
Just think, if you're a Democrat, if you're a Biden, even if you're a Republican and you voted for Biden because you just couldn't stand Trump, look at yourself in the mirror and think about this press conference, think about this administration, think about what you voted for, and ask yourself if you really think that you did the right thing. And I guarantee you, if you're honest with yourself, the answer will not be yes.
Some of those Democrats are going to say, I voted for Biden because I wanted Harris.
And you would be more evil.
Yeah, well, but Harris was the least
this
elected
whole,
person.
Let's not kid ourselves, guys. This whole election was orange man bad, get Trump out of office. We're going to vote for Biden.
And do whatever he's done.
And whatever he's done. But
good,
the thing
bad,
is that there's so much voter fraud. I'm still saying Trump's
they hate
my
Trump
president.
so much, they would rather vote for Weekend at Bernie's prop, the diaper-wearing, 6 foot of stupid Joe Biden, than Donald Trump, a man that loved America, a man that put America first and wanted to work for the American people. They want this Pravda Soviet communist Joe Biden, Kamala Harris regime to happen.
And forget about the people, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. Forget about them as individuals, right? Think about what's going on here, okay? It's been a lot more quiet lately, right? And
it has.
It has been very quiet. Biden has been very quiet until this idiotic press conference, right?
Right.
And that's
he had
because
to do something. He had to come out there.
But why have things been quiet?
Well, wait. You heard today that he has now invited Putin and the president of China, the dictator of China, to come to
Xi Jinping.
Yeah. To come together for, I can't remember what it was, but he wants them to come together.
Like a bizarre summit thing. Or
some
something.
summit thing to talk. I can't wait for that.
Right. Oh,
because
absolutely.
he obviously doesn't know his own history, because we have a military, or had, I don't even know if it's still valid, a military pact with China to protect us against Russia. So we put those two diametrically opposed to each other, and now he's wants them to have those sit down party with him?
Those countries do not respect us now.
No, they
because
can't.
And remember that when the they had that thing in Alaska. The Biden administration
Yeah.
had a lady with purple hair sitting down
Oh.
with China, and China threw a fit.
It's always the ones with the purple hair.
But I guess Biden really reamed him because she should not have been there. She at least should have been wearing a wig. She should not have been having purple hair because it showed a sign of disrespect to the Chinese government.
And this is the thing: the woke people, the woke agenda, the left, social justice, whatever, they're not competent people. They're not intelligent people. Like what rational person would think to go to a sit down with the Chinese with purple hair
Delegation.
right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Delegation,
obviously that's an idiotic idea, and if you are trying to engage in foreign relations, you don't behave that way.
I think what needs to happen is Obama needs to come back and bow
He never
down.
left.
I think he needs to come back and bow down and say, I apologize.
I apologize.
Well, and
Sure,
did you
yeah.
hear what the delegation said about the United States of America? That we're basically a joke, and that they basically have us where they want us. They are purposely trying to destroy the United States of America, and they almost have us to where they want us with this administration.
Hear me now, Biden voters. You are doing exactly that. You voted for Biden, and you are contributing to the destruction of the United States.
But remember, a
Congratulations.
lot of them believe that the United States is bad because they're being lied to for so long.
Well, I guess you and the Chinese have something in common. You
Well,
both
you're
want
going
to
to have a
destroy
civil
the
war.
country.
You're going to have a civil war.
Well, I think if they get this all done in Congress, if they're trying to get the filibuster done, I think we're all done, because they will
can-
then control everything. They will pass every bill that they want to pass, and we won't have a.
Well, Jeff, you and I discussed this earlier today. They'll get everything they want, assuming somehow the Republicans manage to garner enough power to get back in there. And this has been the case with, Cocaine Mitch all along, is we never pull everything back, right? We only pull back some or parts or
Of what the Democrats
of what
did.
the Democrats
Democrats
do.
did. Right.
So if they move that goalpost way to the left, we'll never pull it back to where it was. We might get close or halfway.
Well,
or
if they
something.
pull down, if they pull what they're trying to get done now, if they pull it off, we won't ever get back.
No,
No.
you
Yeah.
won't get elected.
And not to be a Debbie Downer or anything, but I mean, the trajectory of this country for decades and decades now has been hard left, and conservatives for a long time have done not really much to stop that trajectory. And
No.
again,
No,
not
they
to be-
haven't done anything.
Not to be super negative or anything, but my gosh,
We've been sitting on the couch doing absolutely nothing.
Well,
we
and-
have. Because a lot of the conservatives, they don't get out and vote. They don't voice their opinions.
I'll use Mitch as my example. He loves being the voice of the resistance. That's his favorite spot, right? It just seems like Mitch is okay with doing whatever as long as A, it doesn't actually do anything, and B, he can get all his money and power and stuff.
yeah,
Woohoo.
yeah, he's an arch pragmatist, right?
Yeah.
He's a pragmatist. I mean, do whatever works in the moment, not what the moral thing is, not the principled thing, but do what works for your narrow interest in the moment.
Yep. And then when he finally does take power, it's by inches. I'll undo a little bit of Obamacare, but we're not going to get rid of it.
Well, and
'cause-
he's not taking power for the sake of upholding conservative principles. He's
Nope.
taking power because to him it's a game, and he wants to win at the game.
Yep, it's his turn.
Yeah.
Oh, I love ending the podcast on a
Right.
note.
Downer, on a Debbie Downer.
On a high note.
But but this should provoke you to action.
No,
right?
and that's what we want with the podcast. We want people to get active. We want people to get involved, even if that means you fund somebody else to get involved or start working on it, because
Well, that's what.
That's exactly-
That's why I love trying to fundraise for the Heartland Fund, because
Thank you.
that's what the Heartland Fund is all about.
Yeah.
It's
It's
about
like-
those conservative values and trying to get the message out that we need to get active again.
Where can people go?
I'm glad you asked.
Jeff, where can people go for you?
Well, for me, you can go to Citizens for Jeff Coleman. That's the email address. That happens to be also the address to get into our website, www.citizensforjeffcoleman.com. But the other
Sean. Oh, you're talking. We haven't done that all night though.
all night long. But we're talking about the Heartland Fund now.
No, I was keying in because this is something. We're talking about getting involved. I never wanted to run for politics. I never wanted to do any of that. That wasn't me.
Isn't something someone else at our table, or are we gonna wait?
Maybe
for that?
we're gonna wait.
Okay.
But that I mean, I've always wanted to do. I always wanted to do something, and so when. Well, long story short, when folks came into my house and called me Nazis without knowing who I was, I decided that I was going to throw down and that I was not only going to fight, I was going to win.
Fair enough.
We started the Heartland Fund. And so, like I said, if you'd like to contact us, if you'd like to contribute, if you'd like to do whatever, get involved. You can reach us at fundingtheheartland.com. There you'll find links to contribute, to communicate with us, get involved, and let us know that you're running. See if we can help you. So that's I want to see that red wave, but I want to see it. I want to see it squash this ridiculousness that we're fighting right now.
And that's the point, right? That's the point of this whole conversation.
Yep.
That's the point of the Heartland Fund.
Yep.
It's to find ways for us to be able to take action, whether it's donating to a cause, getting involved in the cause, volunteering, running for office. I mean,
yeah, because you just can't donate. You have to do something.
Exactly.
Well,
you have to do something,
not
no
just
matter
that,
what.
but like I used to refer to it used to be that you had the Democrats and the Republicans, you had your team, I had my team, but guess what? We're all in the same, NFL or the United States in this matter. We were all we may have different ideas, but we weren't anti-American. That's not the case anymore.
No, it's not.
And they'll tell you that. So now, and that's
I mean, on that point, Sean, you clearly see that the Republican Party is pro-America, and the Democrat Party is anti-America, pro-communist.
well,
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Because it's very important that we make this point.
Yeah.
That's
Go ahead.
why I'm so excited to help and to try to fundraise for your organization.
Thank you.
Because for me, you're so strong on the Second Amendment. You're so strong against abortion.
Yep.
Those are two areas that for me are very, very important, and
they should be the bedrock for any of it,
exactly.
any conservative period.
And that's kind of the bedrock for the Heartland Fund.
Yep. No, it is. It certainly is, and we want to contribute to.
On fiscal conservatism, I mean, is that where you stand also?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. So
what Trump did,
we
just
are
spending money all the time.
I'll let my
he didn't like
we're
he didn't
fiscal.
like that.
We're very fiscal conservative.
Okay. All right.
But I mean, we're still Trump Republicans, and the
And I
fact that we
don't-
do believe that American first, and I'm also a Missouri first kind of person.
There you go.
and we don't want to
like
see. We don't want to see. The one thing we don't want to see is I don't want to have to support or glad hand. How do I put this nicely? A rhino. Because I have
no
to.
rhino.
I want those folks out because I think those
This-
individuals that try to toe the line, that try to be nicey nice, they're almost worse than the people that will actually tell you that they're the communist socialists.
I don't even
at
think
least they'll
rhinos
tell
toe
you.
the line anymore.
No,
I
no,
think
they
rhinos
don't.
are
They
just
don't.
Democrats they really are just Democrats in
So-
it being elected as Republicans.
Well, as far as what the Heartland Fund is about,
Mm-hmm.
essentially, if you wanted to contribute, what you're paying for essentially is education, recruitment, and grassroots action, right?
Yes,
Exactly.
Because what we're educating folks, I mean, through this podcast, hopefully you learn something, and then we're hoping to recruit, and we are doing an excellent job of recruiting some excellent talent to whether it's run for office or to volunteer for the cause.
Yes.
And then we're taking action. That's why we give you action items, like on Jeff's bills in the state legislature. We're giving you action items. We're trying to organize the grassroots so that we can take action, whether it's knocking on doors, making phone calls, or running for office. It doesn't matter. The point is education, recruitment, action.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we'll have the shirts and other stuff eventually on our website that people can start wearing what we stand for, which we'll have some shirts started here soon.
Do you want to give the announcement about where we're going to be here in about 3 weeks?
I'll let you.
Oh, okay. So Jackson County is having a Lincoln Days.
Yes, we are.
And what are those dates again?
That is April 17th. It's a Saturday. Tickets are on sale now at jacomo.gop. That's JACOMO.GOP. You can get your $50 general admission ticket, which is... You okay? Michelle's losing her stuff. It happens to all of us. So it's tickets on sale right now. General admission, $50. VIP ticket, $150. JACOMO.GOP is the website. And it is Saturday, April 17th.
And the Heartland Fund is planning on being there, which is very exciting. This will be our first quote-unquote public event where we're, not just talking on the podcast. We'll actually be there on site.
And we actually thank you guys for helping out the Jackson County, Missouri Republican Party, because you guys are actually doing a lot for us behind the scenes.
Very stealthily we move. Yes, Jeff?
Well, I just also want to mention the staffing that you guys are putting together. The volunteers have done an awesome job. And I just want to congratulate you on that, because
thank you.
It just continues to grow and grow. And I think it's an awesome grassroots organization. And I encourage everyone to get out, even if it's $5, just whatever you can contribute. That's it's an awesome organization, and they're very, very helpful to me. They're very, very helpful to those who are have the Second Amendment at heart, want to protect the Second Amendment, and also want to protect little babies.
Yeah,
like-minded folks.
Yeah, we got stymied with COVID, but we're gonna really start ramping things up here really darn quick, because I'm looking forward to some future campaign announcements. Hint, nudge.
Free speech is important to us.
Yep.
Second Amendment is important to us. Little babies, unborn, are important to us, as well as, just children in general are important to us, because Missouri needs to make sure our children are taken care of.
And those are our principles, right? Those are our... We're not going to change on those things. Those are Those are our morals. Those are our principles. Those are the things we stand. That informs who we support and what we support policy-wise. And so, to that point, that's why we can always provide you with education on policies, like current events policies that make sure that if you're like-minded, like we are, that you can always support life, the Second Amendment, freedom of speech, the Constitution. Current events like what's going on in the legislature, action items you can take. You can call your representative, you can call your state senator, and you can keep abreast of campaigns that are coming up, like for initiative petitions or candidates that are running that are like-minded like we are. We're trying to educate you on people and policies that share our values, so that you can take action on those things.
Yeah, and we need to really, really hit the ground running. We formed and by the way, the Heartland Fund is a 501c4, not a C3, so contributions are not tax deductible. There's a whole ball of wax thing there. When I formed the company, I saw kind of the writing on the wall, and I didn't want to be in the crosshairs of a newly refocused, reinitialized IRS. I didn't want to get under attack by being a C3 and being one of the first ones in line. So being that C4 kind of protects us as well.
Speaking of crosshairs, aren't you looking at possibly having a raffle for like an AR-15?
Oh yeah, we're talking about the AR-15 raffle. Yeah. We're very excited about doing that. We even have an individual that I'm currently talking with about the logistics on how to set up a build your own AR afternoon where you purchase the gun and you do all that legally, and then he talks you through how to put it together. He actually helped me build mine, and it is the coolest thing.
That is awesome.
That is so cool.
I mean, even if you don't even if you don't actively shoot, I'm a hobbyist. I shoot a little bit.
We have to find bullets.
Well, that too. Ammunition is a little bit hard to find.
Thanks, Joe Biden.
But putting it together, actually seeing how many working parts and how modular the AR is, I completely understand why it's so popular now.
But then you also have a boat that you can go out in and accidentally lose your right.
Yes.
I have two ponds. I have two ponds
No,
on my
we don't have ponds. We have lakes.
Yeah,
here.
right now they're lakes, but
So many have been lost in boating
Yeah,
accidents.
We'd
So
like
many
to.
tragic
We'd like
boating
to. We'd like to
accidents.
take this moment of silence. Anyway, sorry, I got us off track. We talked about the Heartland. I'm very excited about what's going on in these next couple months, these next couple years, as a matter of fact, because we got a lot of exciting stuff coming in. Folks that hadn't considered a run, that are considering running for office. We've got projects coming up. We've got all sorts of fundraising opportunities. It's going to be a lot of fun. And the poor folks in my city that have no idea what's coming, because here's an example. Here's an example of the grassroots, the base that we're talking about. So we moved to a small town, King City, Gentry County. We noticed, Michelle and I noticed that the school's American flag and the city's park flag was kind of tattered. Boom, got new flags. So we're going to be presenting them with a flag here before too long for both those
That's awesome.
institutions. Why? Because, we can.
Exactly. If you can, do it.
Yeah.
And one more time, where do you go? Where do you go if you want to keep following these things?
And abreast and help fund this sort of thing. It's www.fundingtheheartland.com.
Where are you on social media?
We are kicking up the social media accounts as well. We will have an Instagram.
We have an Instagram.
We have
Just
an Instagram.
Don't use it very often.
We haven't gotten that sped up yet. We started the page on the Facebook.
Okay, boomer.
yeah, exactly. We started the page on the Facebook.
And a lot of the stuff with the Facebook, I just post most current events. That way people can keep up to date because there are so many different news outlets that they can go to. And a lot of people don't know where to look. And it's amazing to me that so many people aren't aware of all these different news sites and stuff. And I'm still learning about some new ones that my friends will pop up and it's like, did you ever follow this? I'm like,
and those of you that are in the far social media, I just started a Telegram.
A Telegram.
I've been on
Telegram
group. That's Heartland Fund as well. So a bunch of different options there. We are very small.
And I do have MayWe, which I'm starting to really like MayWe. But I don't like it so much on the phone, but I really like it on the computer better. And Parler, I like Parler too.
So we both, Michelle and I, both run the Heartland, but we also have our full-time jobs currently. So as we transition things and this starts to get sped up, obviously we'll have more time to spend on the social media. But right now it's whenever we get a chance.
So if you're anything like me and you want to take action right now because you don't like what's going on in your country, contact us now.
Yep.
Please.
Yeah.
know.
Or just
let us know what you want to help. Because help us in any way, shape, form,
or if there's a
fashion
topic
that you want us to discuss.
Send us your feedback,
yeah.
please.
And we've got that as well.
And if you guys, not to mention, but we have a Gmail account, also a regular email account. I say we, you guys. Sorry. For the Heartland Fund. And what is it to contact?
The easiest one would be media@fundingtheheartland.com.
Okay.
That would be the easiest one because that goes in the general bucket. You can also contact me directly, the director, at Shaun.Horner@fundingtheheartland.com if you wanted to talk to me directly.
I mean, this is fantastic. You guys are helping conservative candidates, conservative elected officials around the metro area right now. And hopefully we're going to gravitate toward the rest of the state of Missouri.
That's the plan.
I mean, this is fantastic.
Starting Missouri first.
What I love, though, is your stance on the pro-life issue, because you can't help life and kids succeed in life unless it starts at the womb.
Yeah. No, and that's true. All right, kids, we've come to an end of another podcast. I'd like to thank everyone for tonight's podcast. My wife, Michelle, Kress, Dakota, and Jeff for joining us this evening, and the producer, Becky, and the background noise provided by the children. On behalf of myself and all my friends, good day.
See you, Sean.
See ya.
Bye.
See ya.
Wow, I'm losing my voice.
Brought to you by the Jackson County Republican Party. Contribute at jacomo.gop. That's JACOMO.GOP. And promotional considerations given by Heartland Funding Incorporated, helping promote traditional values and candidates. Contribute at fundingtheheartland.com.